What happens when the absolutely powerless face the impossibly strong? It's a question literally as old as time, and the answer is actually hidden within an ancient epic of survival. Today, we're going to explore a masterclass in strategy from the Panchatantra in this explainer. But before we break down the exact mechanics of this genius, we first need to step into the forest.
Look at this impossible mismatch. Seriously, what can a tiny rabbit do when an entire herd of elephants threatens his home? He can't fight them. He definitely can't overpower them. So how can he possibly stop them? Well, sometimes intelligence can defeat absolute strength. This is the story of a rabbit who protected his entire community without fighting a single elephant. The story begins now.
A severe drought struck the forest. The skies offered no rain, and the earth cracked under the intense heat. Slowly, the life-giving rivers and the small ponds began drying up completely. Deep within the woods, a huge herd of massive elephants, led by their mighty king, Four-Tusk, desperately searched the barren landscape for water. Eventually, after days of wandering, they discovered a beautiful, shimmering lake hidden away in the valley. The elephants, blinded by their thirst, rushed toward it. But the soft earth surrounding this lake was home to an intricate network of burrows filled with many rabbits. As the massive elephants joyously entered the area to drink and bathe, tragedy struck. Many rabbits were unknowingly crushed beneath their heavy feet. The elephants, completely unaware of the devastation they caused, returned to the lake again and again.
The surviving rabbits were absolutely terrified. Their homes were destroyed and their families were in ruins. They knew that if the elephants continued coming to the lake, their entire community would be entirely wiped out. In desperation, the bruised and bleeding rabbits gathered together in a hushed council to find a solution. Among them was a clever, observant rabbit named Victory. Seeing the despair of his friends, he stepped forward. He offered to do the unthinkable. He would speak to the Elephant King.
Victory bravely approached the edge of the forest where the great herd was resting, but instead of standing on the ground before the enormous, towering king where he could easily be stepped on or ignored, Victory cleverly climbed high onto a jagged rock overlooking the herd. The Elephant King, noticing this tiny creature elevated above him, asked, "Who are you?" Victory stood tall and replied with absolute confidence, "I am a messenger." The Elephant King rumbled, "A messenger of whom?" Victory paused, letting the silence hang in the air, and said, "The moon." The Elephant King was taken aback and surprised. Victory explained that the beautiful lake belonged exclusively to the moon, and that the rabbits living on its shores were under the moon's divine protection. He sternly warned the Elephant King that the massive herd had carelessly disturbed the moon's sacred lake.
Hearing this, the Elephant King suddenly became deeply worried. He had no desire to anger the heavens. He humbly asked the tiny rabbit how he could possibly make amends for his herd's actions. Victory, keeping his composure, simply told the giant king to come to the shores of the lake that very night alone.
Night fell, and the Elephant King obediently followed Victory to the water's edge. The sky was clear, and a brilliant full moon was shining directly above the still water. Victory stood on the bank, raised his paw, and pointed down toward the perfect glowing reflection on the surface. "There is the moon," he declared. The Elephant King looked down into the lake. He saw the shining, majestic reflection and truly believed the moon had descended to the water.
Seeking to bow and show his deep respect, the Elephant King moved his heavy trunk toward the water. The moment his breath and trunk touched the surface, the water rippled, and the bright reflection trembled violently. Victory immediately warned him, shouting that the moon was shaking with absolute fury at his touch. The Elephant King, witnessing the fractured light, became profoundly frightened. He quickly pulled back, apologized profusely to the trembling reflection, and swore a solemn vow never to return to those sacred shores.
The elephants left the lake that very night, journeying far away, never to be seen again. The rabbits were safe, their homes were secure. A tiny, physically powerless rabbit had defeated overwhelming, world-shaking strength without ever using force. The story ends here.
Okay, let's dive into exactly how that happened. Welcome back from the forest, guys. What we just witnessed wasn't just some charming little fable. It's actually a clinical, brilliant deconstruction of asymmetric warfare straight from the Panchatantra. Just look at this comparison. The rabbit had absolutely zero physical power, right? And the Elephant King was enormously powerful. Yet the rabbit won because he understood one fundamental truth: strength is not the only way to solve a problem. So let's see how this builds into a very real, practical strategy.
Now, what's really fascinating is the exact playbook Victory used. These 3 steps right here are the core of overcoming impossible odds. The beauty of this ancient wisdom is just how incredibly structured and logical it is. Let's break down each of these 3 crucial lessons and see how a completely powerless creature engineered a massive victory.
Lesson 1. Avoid direct force. When you know for a fact you're going to lose a game of brute strength, your very first move has to be completely changing the rules of the game.
Lesson 2. Understand your opponent. Victory realized he could literally weaponize the king's psychology, finding that invisible lever that could move a giant. Lesson 3. Multiply limited resources. Strategy is the ultimate multiplier. It takes whatever tiny amount of leverage you have and scales it up to match the size of your obstacle. So, why does all this matter to you? Well, because this ancient wisdom remains incredibly relevant today on our modern battlefields. Think about it. In business, a smaller startup doesn't always need to compete with a massive, entrenched corporation on size or budget. Instead, you compete on agility, on niche understanding, on shifting the entire paradigm. In a high-stakes negotiation, greater financial resources don't always guarantee a win if you can uncover what the other side genuinely fears losing. And in your own professional life, you don't always win by being the loudest or the strongest person in the room. Honestly, sometimes you win simply by understanding the situation better than anyone else.
So I really want to challenge you today. When you're facing a massive obstacle, a towering elephant in your own life or career, stop asking the default question. Stop asking, how powerful is my opponent? Because let's face it, that only breeds fear. Instead, ask this one fundamental question. What does my opponent value? What do they care about? What do they fear? What are their blind spots? Just answering that single question can reveal a completely different, totally bloodless way to solve your problem. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final thought. The tiny clever rabbit from the forest teaches us an immortal truth. When strength is not available, strategy becomes strength. That is the absolute genius of the Panchatantra. It's ancient wisdom, but with razor-sharp modern relevance. So the next time you feel entirely outmatched, remember the lake, remember the reflection, and ask yourself, what is your moon?